Good evening. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is precisely 5:31 p.m. in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. This meeting is officially open with a quorum present. We will move to the pledges, which will be led by John Cope.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Good job, John.
I'd love to turn it back over to you, Mr. Cope, for our UIL Academic State Competition and then the 2022-2023 Distinguished Project Lead the Way campuses.
This evening we recognize the following students who competed in the University Interscholastic League Academic State Competition and placed in the top 3 of their conference UIL regional competitions in Austin. Sakayla Nze from Southwest High School placed 5th in state for news writing competition in Conference 5A. Mikey Glass from Arlington Heights High School competed in Lincoln Douglas debate in Conference 5A. Cooper Morris from Marine Creek Collegiate High School placed 14th in state for current issues and events in Conference 4A. And Tyler Hathcock from I Am Terrell Academy for STEM and VPA placed 18th in state for computer science in Conference 4A. Let's give them all a round of applause. Next, we would like to recognize our campuses and partner, Project Lead the Way. The recognition program is designed to honor districts and schools committed to increasing student access, engagement, and achievement in the Project Lead the Way programs. These schools are empowering students to thrive in an evolving world and have achieved exemplary results from the programs. Young Women's Leadership Academy received the Distinguished Gateway program for the 6th year in a row and Distinguished Engineering program for the 3rd year in a row. Diamond Hill Jarvis High School and Northside High School also received Distinguished Engineering Program recognition. Cesar Chavez and H.V. Helbing Elementary Schools received Distinguished Launch Program for the 4th year in a row. M.H. Moore and Diamond Hill Elementary Schools also received Distinguished Launch Program for the 5th year. Will all the principals and instructors from these schools please stand? Let's give them a round of applause.
Three, two, one. 3, 2, 1. Good, guys. Thank you.
This concludes our recognitions. Thank you.
And as you walk out the door, congratulations one more time for being honored this evening. Let's give them one more round of applause. Moving on to number 4 on the agenda, Lone Star Governance. Dr. Ramsey, we are ready for the Lone Star Governance Early Literacy Goal Progress Measure Review.
Thank you, President Jackson. This evening, Sarah Rispey is here with us to present the report.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsey, President Jackson, members of the board. Happy to be with you tonight to go over the goal progress measures for Goal 1. As you'll remember, we had significant change in our STAR test this year, so we will not have STAR results to go over the actual Goal 1 itself, which is third grade literacy, until mid-August. But we can look at our progress measures. So first progress measure we have is 1.1. These are our pre-K students and how they scored on Circle on phonological awareness. Our target was 84%. Our actual was 81%. So we're 3 points below target, but you do see a steady increase coming back from the pandemic. We are now above the pre-pandemic of 80. At 81, with a goal next year of 85, and we gained 2 points this year, so that seems achievable. If we look at this by student group, you will see increases for all student groups except our African American group that has a 1 point decline. Still at 75%, but we want all groups going up to meet our goal. Our goal progress measure 1.2 is map reading fluency for grades K through 3. Our goal this year was 46%. Our actual was 54%, so well above the goal there. With kindergarten, we look at phonological awareness, and grades 1 through 3, we look at sentence reading fluency. And we'll take those apart a little bit here and look at kindergarten. On phonological awareness, we actually had a little bit of a decrease. We're still at 68%, but down from 72 last year in phonological awareness. For our sentence reading fluency, we're seeing nice gains across grade levels. So at first grade, remember, those are probably our early readers who are already fluent in sentences, and that number went up compared to last year, as well as at second grade and then at third grade. When we look again at student groups on the map reading fluency, we see gains for most student groups. Emergent bilingual held steady at 49%, and again we had a slight decline, 1 percentage point for African American. Final goal progress measure is 1.3. This is map growth for reading in K through 3. Our goal for this year was 42%, and our actual was 48%. So again, well above the goal. And then looking at this by grade level, we see that we were nice gains in kindergarten here, as well as first and second. There was a 2 point decrease in third grade, but overall 6 point gain. Looking by student group, we see that every single student group here showed increases from last year to this year. So good to see that happening with all of the groups. That is a very brief report tonight, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Trustee Dar.
Thank you, President Jackson. First, I want to give a shout out to the teachers because they're working hard to make sure that our kids are improving every day, and these scores don't go up without effective instruction in the classroom. So a quick shout out to the educators in the classroom and the administrators on campuses that are providing the support for them that they need to make this happen. This is a very quick question. With the redesign of the STAR, I know that basically our kids took a very different test this year than the test that they've taken in years past. So comparing those scores from last year and this year won't necessarily demonstrate growth. Will we continue to have access to, and will we continue to be presented with the MAP data?
Definitely. We will present, whatever the STAR results are, we will present those and compare where we can, and we will continue to present the MAP data. We'll have beginning, middle, and end of year again next year and look at comparison from year to year there.
Okay, thank you. I feel like I glean more information. It'll be interesting to see once the STAR results come back because it's going to be new to all of us, but I do appreciate this data. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Trustee Dar. Trustee Bridges?
Thank you for the report. My first question would be, when you look at the data, what do you see that's happening, particularly among African Americans, while there is no movement or growth?
Great question. I think we had that same question, Trustee Bridges, when we looked at this data. While that is a smaller student group, we are digging into those data to look at specific schools and where we can target resources as we move into the next school year to make sure that every group, including our African American group, continues to grow. And so we'll be working with the new team on sharing these data so that they can dig in and take action on that.
Give me 1 second, I'm sorry. It's just concerning because I've been on the board for a year, and unfortunately, I'm not seeing that number move. And that is probably the biggest question that I'm asked, and I think it's something we have to really hone in with some real serious intentionality on how we are going to address that, because it's not good, and I'm very concerned.
Thank you. I think we share that concern, and the new team came in ready to look at that and see what we can do to get that moving.
Okay.
Thank you, Trustee Bridges. Trustee Lynch?
Yeah, I just had a quick comment. One, is this capturing just the student population, or are these students that have stayed within Fort Worth ISD, or is it measuring ones that are coming and going?
It's including all students that took the test. If the board is interested, at any time we can look at students that have been with Fort Worth ISD, but these are any student that participated in the testing is included in these data.
Okay. And just a comment, I think it'd be helpful to have kind of campus data provided in the future.
Happy to bring that to you.
All right, thanks.
Trustee Bridges?
I'm sorry, have you noticed any strategies that's working really well with that population?
I will defer to Dr. Ramsey on that. Trustee Bridges?
So I'm going to talk about a couple of things. The first is new instructional materials, making sure that we're teaching with fidelity the science of teaching reading. That's what nationwide is where we're finding good results. And so we're pushing into that. The other piece for us is, as we created the budget, and I know this is a conversation for later tonight, but providing additional supports, whether that's additional dollars, professional development, or staffing to our highest need campuses, we needed to go away from having supports that are universal to having differentiated supports by campus. And so that's the difference that we're implementing for next school year, because that's where we're actually going to make the difference. What was currently happening, and it happens at most school districts, is that we try to find the magic bullet and everyone gets more of the same. And we all know that's not the way that works. That isn't the way it works if we go to the doctor. When we go to the doctor, they have to diagnose you and provide you a plan based on what your needs are, and that's what we're doing next year for our students.
Thank you. Trustee Martinez?
I just want to echo what Trustee Bridges has said. You know, being on the board 2 years and looking over these same reports, very little has changed. And I really am interested in, these reports are very like high level. We see that, you know, by student groups and grades, but I'm interested in really looking deeper, like some of those layers back. And as Dr. Ramsey has said about what's going to work for the individual student, because when, you know, I have questions on, well, which, you know, are these students, you know, what's the mobility rate? What's the teacher experience? What's, you know, absentee rate for these different groups? I think breaking down and giving us a deeper dive into these numbers can help us get a better picture, because we look at these charts over and over and see very little movement. And so we need to know why.
Agree. And as we move into next year's calendar, we're looking at making the change where that board workshop date doesn't just become a special board meeting, but it becomes an opportunity to dig deeper into specific items. And the bread and butter of what we do is learning and leading. And so we have to have workshops that are about student outcomes so that we can get deeper.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Risby.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. We're up to the superintendent update and board committee written reports. Superintendent update, board committee report are written reports. Do we have any questions about the written reports that were provided to each of us? Then at this time, I will call the public hearing to order. Public hearing to discuss the 2023-2024 budgets for the General Fund, Debt Service Fund, and Child Nutrition Fund. This item, the public hearing to discuss 2023-2024 budgets for the General Fund, Debt Service Fund, and Child Nutrition Fund is now called to order. Are there any comments or questions from trustees? And at this time, we will call the three speakers forward for the budget funds public comment. Is that correct? Yes. First speaker will be Holly Plemons.
Can y'all hear me? Okay. Trustee Jackson, I'd like to speak after the presentation. I don't know how I'm supposed to give public comment before the presentation, so I'd like to be moved to afterwards.
Council?
I believe that's how we have done it before.
I believe so too. I'm not seeing the same thing on the
With comment.
script
With
here.
comment after the hearing. President
Thank you, Ms.
Jackson.
Plemons. That would be great. Thank you for the correction. At this time, we will hear from those who requested to speak. This is what it says now. So, do we have a presentation first that we can give? Okay, thank you.
yes,
I
we
see
can-
you all here.
So just to clarify,
Yeah.
the public
Okay.
meeting has been called to order by
Yes.
President Jackson, and now we'll have the presentation.
Yes,
So we
thank
won't have
you.
any concerns.
Thank you.
This evening, speaking on the budget, will be our CFO, Carmen Arrieta Candelaria, and Patricia Young as well. We have a representative from TASB and Dr. Peña. And I just want to say, before they actually get started, I want to thank the board for their dedication as far as this process has gone. You know, the budget is a months and months long process, and the board subcommittee that meets monthly, the fact that we had a workshop and then mini sessions with trustees, this board has really dug in, and I just want to say thank you to the board and thank you to staff for putting this together. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening. Carmen Arieta Candelaria, I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the district. And with me this evening here at the desk is first Dr. Raul Pena. He's the Chief Talent Officer for the district. And with him is Amy Campbell from TASB HR Services. And to my left is the Executive Director of Budget, Patricia Young. We're going to be going over the presentation first on the budget adoption, and then I'll hand it over to Dr. Pena, who will go over the compensation. As Dr. Ramsey indicated, this is almost, I would say, a year-long process to get us to where we are today. We're on track. The board is considering the budget for adoption today on June 27th statutorily. You are required to adopt a budget by June 30th, and that is the end, also coincides with the end of our fiscal year. Our agenda for this evening for my portion of the presentation is that we're going to be going over the proposed budgets for the three funds that you're required to approve: the general fund, the debt service fund, and the child nutrition fund. We're also going to be providing you with some information on some key dates for items to be considered. As I indicated earlier, this is a process that requires not only outreach but input. We have a series of meetings with the board through its finance committees, through the budget workshops, through many sessions, through the regular board meetings. We also took advantage of the wonderful advisory committees that Dr. Ramsey established this year and utilized them to present the budget to them as well: community, business, parent, support staff, and teacher. We also presented to our district advisory committee, otherwise known as the DAC, and the District Employee Relations Committee, also known as the DIRC, and we also presented to the principals meeting in June. The budget starts with a zero-based budgeting approach. This is the second year of this type of approach, which will basically start from scratch. We start from zero, and department owners and campuses are to budget to the absolute operational need. And we utilize the budget planning tool, an application that we have created, and it provides a platform that gives budget owners an opportunity to enter line item budgeting with enough detail and justification to support that line item. Additionally, that tool allows us to identify what priorities and strategies that each of those funds are aligned to, and it also provides supervisors the ability to go in and to approve, reject, or require additional information from their staff as they are entering. This detailed information allows us to have the information that we need in order to be able to evaluate what the budgetary spend is, to make sure it's aligned with our academic goals. And we also have budget hearings. After everything's been submitted, we have a budget hearing of the leadership cabinet team that goes over each of the budgets with each of the department owners, and we go line by line to ensure that our dollars are being spent in accordance with our goals. We also allow for additional budget requests. This is an opportunity for budget owners to submit information to us where they may have a need above and beyond their zero-based budget. We budget for these separately. We have a careful review of each and every one of these items that's submitted and either approve or disapprove these based on the information that's provided. We also required them to go through a process this year to determine what their academic return on investment. Anything over $100,000 was required to go through that process. This was a new process for each of our campuses, but again, just to make sure that we are spending our dollars and that we're setting ourselves up for success in order to be able to measure them. When we look at the budget and how it was submitted and aligned with priorities, we created that budget planning tool to gather this information that's aligned with our current priorities as listed above. The The primary categories, of course, in payroll and benefits of $669 million. So this next year, we're going to really focus on that category to try to break that down to make sure that is also aligned with our priorities and strategies as part of our phase 2 of the rollout of our budget planning tool. Here visually, you can see that that is, again, the majority of our spend there. But the next largest category of $94,926,000 is aligned to educational excellence. Our all funds budget, we are going to request that the board approve over $1 billion budget in the general fund of revenues of $801,503,689 and estimated appropriations of $846,826,031, a deficit of $45,322,000. Adding this to our estimated beginning fund balance of $338 million, we would end the next year projected at about $292,703,000. And the debt service fund is $159,258,000. And our expenditures right now projected is $149,228,000, or a net surplus there of $10,030,000. We are also looking there to bring a cash defeasance to the board sometime in July to also pay down some additional debt and issue out the remaining, some of the remaining amount of the $1.2 billion capital program that we have currently in place as a result of the November 21 bond that was approved by the voters. Our food service fund is $52,729,000 worth of revenues and $52,105,000 worth of expenses, or a small surplus of $623,000. Drilling down a little bit on our general fund expenditures, I indicated to you that there's that $45,322,342. One of the things that as I've explained over the course of the last 2 months is that we really focus on trying to come forward with a balanced budget. That was a goal of ours, particularly this year, as we look to the legislature to try to give us some additional monies in order to be able to do some of the things that we wanted to do. Unfortunately, that did not happen. However, it may happen. As I understand, there was a special session that was called today, so we are continuing to be hopeful in order to be able to do that. Last year, I indicated to all of you that I thought it would take about 2 years to get us to a balanced budget, and we certainly made a lot of strides. But I wanted to point out a few things that are in this budget for your consideration. One thing that we looked at was we have about $10.8 million of one-time expenditures. These are expenditures that we do not anticipate that they would be in next year's budget. These are some roof replacements, the textbook gap funding, and the IT laptops that I've presented several times before. Some of the money was able to be shifted. It was higher, but that was able to be shifted over to some ESSER dollars that we can utilize. That brought us down to about $34,524,000. Included in this budget is the general fund share of the recommendation that Dr. Pena is going to be presenting to you this evening, and that's $17,272,000. Also included in this number is a $3.4 million allocation for our employees for their health care, so that we can cover the cost that TRS is increasing, and we're going to cover that $44 per employee for every employee at the employee-only level. So those are the things that moved us a little bit further away than we anticipated. Last year, we adopted a $40 million budget deficit, and we wanted to, again, our goal was to try to get us to a more balanced budget. We did survey our peer group, which is 10 school districts across the state. All but one responded, and we did get 9 respondents. Only one adopted a balanced budget. Every other district is either adopting or has already adopted a deficit budget. So we are, particularly from our peer group, we are not alone in having to dip into our reserves to be able to provide additional compensation and to deal with these one-time adjustments. Looking at our general fund expense by major object, so 82% of our budget is people. And so that makes up quite a number of our budget. 9% is under professional and contracted services. So that is legal expense, utilities, professional development costs. All of those items are categorized in accordance with state regulations under 6200s. In the 6300s is our supplies and materials, instructional materials, supplies for libraries, supplies for teachers, so forth. That's about 6%, and other costs are about 3%. So again, the majority of our cost, when we look at our budget, is in people, is in payroll. I wanted to provide a little bit more detailed revenue budget based on the questions that we had received at the last several meetings and as part of the mini sessions. So this is just a more detailed breakdown, line item by line item of what the revenue is, and supports the conversation that we had been having with regards to looking at not only our taxes, but also looking at the investment in the earnings and the improvements there, looking at our per capita apportionment and our foundation entitlements. It's about a $2 million gain there. We were able to receive some additional money as a result of the $10 allotment from TA, and also our TIA, our teacher incentive allotment. That was also in this line item, and those combined were about $8.6 million. So that was also included in our projection there as well. So overall, we saw a $22,371,000 in improvement in our revenues, or 2.79%. Here it is visually. 64.8% comes from our local revenues, and that comprises two major categories, taxes and investments, but primarily property taxes. And then 33.1% comes from the state. Looking at our budget expense by category, this is a breakdown by campus and department owners. You can see high school, we are allocating $159,751,000. Middle school, $106 million. Elementary is $294 million. Alternative schools is about $20 million. So our campus total is about $610 million goes to our campuses. $236 million goes to our department owners, for a total of $846,826, as compared to the prior year of $819,514,000. I want to also take this opportunity to give you a breakdown on our general fund, specifically as it relates to where we were and where we think we're going to end the year and where we're going in 23-24. So the end in 21-22, we ended the year with actually a surplus of $69,832,514. That was really driven by two things. Number one, it was driven by the lack of the ability to fill positions, and then some ESSER money that we were able to transfer to ESSER 2 and some to ESSER 3. So in 22-23, we passed a deficit budget of $40,382,319, and we think we're going to end the year, if all expenses come in and all items are resolved by 6/30, at about $13,206,489. That would be a use of fund balance for this year, 22-23. And then proposed for 23-24 is the $45,322,342. Now, how do we propose to fund? Well, one of the things that I discussed at the last meeting is that we would utilize our fund balance, otherwise known as our reserves, of that $45 million that would come out of there. If we looked at our number of days that we have as at the end of the fund, the year, we're looking at about 146 days. And that is significantly above the TASBO, the Texas Association of School Business Officials, and the GFOA recommendation of a minimum of 60 days in unassigned fund balance. And also we have a first indicator that looks at our fiscal health. That looks at 75 days of assigned and unassigned fund balance to pass the test. And so with that, if we utilize, or would utilize about 20 days to cover that $45 million deficit. again, with the expectation that we may get some additional funding from the state. One of the questions during the mini session is, what has our fund balance looked like over the last, since 2018? So this is audited numbers from 2018 to 2022 on your left-hand side, and those are the number of days that we've had in the fund balance in both unassigned and assigned fund balance. So at the end of June 30th, 2022, we ended the year with 146.36 days. And for 23 and 24, those days are italicized simply to indicate that those are projected. So we're projected to end the year with 145.98 days. And for 24, if the board adopts the budget today, we would estimate, these are all estimated numbers, at 125 days at the end of next year. And then you can see the graph there that represents the correlation between assigned and unassigned, and then just unassigned only. Turning to the debt service fund, this is the, again, same type of presentation where we passed 21-22 actual results. We ended with a net change of fund balance of $10.8 million. We presented a budget of a net surplus of $2.2 million. And then we are, year-to-date, we're at $4.4 million. We think we're going to end the year at $6.4 million, adding to our fund balance. We've currently estimated our revenues based on the assessed valuation growth of about 13%, and it's based on where we think we're going to end the year. Where we think property values are going to come in. Again, we don't know what those property values are going to be until we get the certified results in July 25th. So our total expenditures in the debt service fund are $149 million, with a surplus currently projected at $10,030,000 as compared to last year when we brought forward a $28 million surplus. Our food service budget here, again, similar presentation here. We think we're going to end the year about the same as revenues of $49,152,000, and we propose that budget of $52,729,000 in revenue and expenditures of $52,105,000, with a surplus there of $623,000. Included in this budget is also a proposed compensation of $440,000 in alignment with the compensation that Dr. Pena is presenting. So these are some upcoming key dates that the board certainly needs to be aware of. In June 30th, our fiscal year ends. On July 25th, our certified values are provided by the TAD, Tarrant Appraisal District. In July, at the July board meeting, we'll have an update on the publication of the proposed tax rate. There's no action at the July meeting. It's simply some information for all of you to provide just to where we've received values and how they have been changing since we got the preliminary values in April. So we want to make sure that you all understand the progression of those changes. Last year, we presented to you it was a new state law that required the board to appoint a designated officer to calculate the no new revenue tax rate and the voter approval tax rate for the district. That was adopted in July of 2022 and continues to appoint myself as that designated officer until it is changed. So we don't have to bring that forward again this year. On August 5th, that's the TEA's submission deadline for the compressed tax rate. We have to calculate it on our own, and then we submit it for their approval. August 11th, if we choose to publish another proposed tax notice, I like to post it again just to make sure the public is aware of the meeting. It's not required if you're going to adopt a tax rate that's lower than the one we published. So we may not need to post it, but nevertheless, I do like to post it to give notice to the public of the meeting. And then August 22nd is the board meeting where the board adopts an ordinance setting the M&O and the INS tax rates. So this evening, the budget, again, is presented for your consideration, and it would adopt the three funds, the general fund, the debt service fund, and the food service fund. And we have complied with all the requirements that are necessary under state law for you all to approve the budget. We did publish a notice in the Fort Worth Star Telegram on June 13th, 2023. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, Dr. Pena, if that would be.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Ramsey. We have here Amy Campbell. She's HR Director with TASB Services, who, as you might recall, was here last year as we did a comprehensive study with Fort Worth ISD. Had been about 8 years since the last time they had joined our district to do that. And this year she's here to give us some general maintenance that she conducted this year and her findings, and then a share out with the board of what she found.
Thank you. It's good to see y'all again. I bring lots of good news, which is rare this year. We have not worked with about 200 districts each year on compensation planning. And I'll just echo what Carmen said, that this year a lot of districts are adopting deficit budgets because funding from the state has not come through at lots of different reasons. But I haven't been able to tell many districts this year that their pay position in the market is in a great spot, but I do get to come tell you that, so I'm scooping myself. Last year, we did the full comprehensive pay review, which I would liken to an engine overhaul. It's a lot of deep analysis and revision of compensation plans, and so we took apart the pay structures and put them back together in different ways to create pay equity within the district, but also market equity. This year, it's more like a cleanup and tune-up. It's small changes and adjustments with the goal of doing another overhaul in the future, but again, maintenance right now. The core processes are very similar, though. We collect your data and match that to market data that we collect from all the districts in the state, but also from private and other public sector, non-school market data that we collect. And then we recommend adjustments. We do so within the budget parameters that the district requests, and so anything we're recommending is designed to fit within your budget. So market pay, you may remember this chart or this picture from last year. That target that we're shooting for is the market median. And the market, when we talk about market rate, it's the middle of all of those values. No district typically shoots for just the middle of the road. We want to be bigger, better, and pay better than our neighbors. And so you'll notice in some of the market comparisons, you've achieved that goal. And so that's laudable and definitely something to be commended. In this case, I just want to point out that that market target, the zone of where we want most employees to be is clustered around the market. You're going to have employees that fall below that. If they're new to the job, if they're learning the job, they come to you without a lot of experience or credentials, and you're going to have people who are above that, and intentionally so, if they've got lots of experience and skills and credentials that you want to reward. So that's very tiny text there, but you can see you have lots of market peers in the local market that you're competing with. Many of those are much smaller than you, and so for administrative positions, we're looking at similarly sized districts or the largest districts in the state, realizing too that you're recruiting from across the state for those positions. For professional level and down, we're looking at that local group. And any jobs that exist outside of K-12 education, we're also factoring in that non-school market data I mentioned. And that's it's always been important, but it's become much more important over the past few years as economic pressures on districts have just increased significantly. So two things we look at is experience of your current teachers and experience of the teachers you've hired. We've seen changes in those data over the past few years among all districts. And I want to point out that in most districts across the state, we would expect about half of continuing teachers to have 10 or fewer years of experience. However, in large urban districts, that tends to be a higher percentage of your teachers. In Fort Worth ISD, about half your teachers, or just over half, do have 10 years or fewer. So while you are a large urban district, you look a little more like suburban or smaller districts, which is a good thing. That means you've been able to recruit and retain experienced teachers, not just new to the profession teachers. I say that, but then when we look at newly hired teachers, you do have quite a few teachers this year that you hired with no prior experience. Again, this is not unusual. We've seen this type of data distribution for districts of all shapes and sizes and locations this year. It's just much harder to hire teachers with experience this year. The applicant pools have dwindled. We're losing teachers in all districts across the state. And so we don't have the luxury of hiring just experienced teachers in any district. And so again, while you have hired a significantly higher percentage of inexperienced teachers, that's not unusual. Everyone is doing the same thing. I think the thing to take away from this is knowing that as a district, you will have to dedicate more resources and support for those new teachers as they develop their skills. So this first chart about teacher pay looks at it provides a visual depiction of that market data, and it's looking at market comparison at 0, 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. The orange line is Fort Worth ISD teacher pay, and the turquoise line is market median. You'll notice there's a big gap between those, meaning you're paying above market at each of those surveyed points in the range. And you actually get further above market the further you go into experience. So again, kudos to the district for recognizing and rewarding experienced teachers at greater values than your peer districts do overall. And this certainly could help support recruitment and retention in the district. Again, knowing that all of your peers are struggling with the same kinds of challenges finding qualified teachers, this puts you in a good position to be able to recruit and retain. This chart just shows in numerical form that same data. I would draw your attention to the bottom two rows. That's the percent and dollar difference comparisons. 100% would be even with market, and so noticing that all of those numbers are above 100% means that you're paying above market median, which is strong and a good place to be. I think of particular importance are the dollar differences from market. Thinking that all of your peers are also giving pay increases, even though many of them are also adopting deficit budgets. Those dollar differences on the bottom are the amounts they'd have to give over and above the standard pay increases that everyone is giving to catch up to you. So those districts that are paying below you not only have to give whatever that general pay increase standard amount is, but also increase their pay by $1,000 to $3,000 to catch up with you. When we look at teaching area stipends, these are additives for teaching in a particular area or for having a particular educational attainment for teachers. So last year we worked on your master's degree to standardize it. Market moved a little bit this year, so you're within $100, not where we'd love you to be, but still close. Likely teachers aren't going to turn down a job or leave a job over $100, but much more competitive and standardized than it was previously. Secondary math and science is another laudable area. You're paying above market there. And that's an area where we're seeing districts add stipends and increase their stipends over time. It's just really difficult to find secondary math and science teachers. And so this supports recruitment and retention in those areas. Bilingual is another one where we say just pay whatever you can to compete because there are too few bilingual certified teachers to fill all of the positions needed in the state. But special ed is an area where you are lagging the market, and Dr. Pena is going to bring some recommendations forward that we worked on with him. General resource would be inclusion and support, special ed support teachers. That's the lowest to market. And special ed self-contained, which is your highest need sped teachers, they're currently paid $1,000 below market for that stipend. And so definitely an area that could, that warrants improvement. So the next two slides show you market comparisons for all non-teachers in the district. This first group is almost exclusively salaried professional and administrative staff, with the caveat that technology is mixed non-exempt and exempt jobs put together, so you've got some hourly jobs in there too. To talk you through this slide real quick, the left-hand side is the name of the job groups. The next column is how your staff are paid relative to the market. The column after that is how your pay structures compare to the market. So the key there is you want both your people to compare well, but you want your structures to compare well too. I often think of it as the people paid to market is your retention, their ability to retain staff if you're paying well to market. The midpoint to market is supports your ability to recruit. If you're offering strong pay in the market through your structures, then that helps bring in new staff. So overall, you'll see almost all of those numbers are at or above 100%, and even those that are slightly below are only within 1 or 2% below market. Some things to note, many of the jobs in executives, instructional programs in business and operations, in technology for that matter, are single incumbent jobs, and so their pay comparison to market is more significantly impacted by things like individual experience and credentials and skills. I should also note that campus professional support looks higher than that other group because the district has done a great job working on the educator career pathway. And so in the past, those positions were very compressed with teachers where you might not get a pay increase to move up that pathway. You might just get an increase because of more duty days. Well, over the past 2 years, that's improved to where now that pathway is strong, and you've created a clear pathway for staff to move down. And so those percent differences above market are intentional and a positive thing. When we look at hourly staff, we see even higher percentages to market. That's due in part to your focus on improving starting pay for hourly staff to $15 an hour. I would venture to guess some of your peers may try to catch up to that if they haven't already, but you definitely led the way improving pay for those groups. And every district is struggling with recruitment and retention for hourly staff. We hear about Buc-ee's and H-E-B and all these private companies that are paying a lot more than many districts are able to pay. This is kind of step one to improving retention and recruitment efforts. Pay is not the only thing that helps keep people or bring people to work, but that definitely, this supports your efforts to keep and hire great staff. Oh, that was it for me. I'll hand it over to you.
Wanted to, on May 9th, I reviewed some of these examples, brought them back just to have a recap of what Ms. Campbell shared about the strong vote that happened last year to increase our minimum hourly wage to $15 an hour for all full-time employees, and the impact that some of the approvals from last year had. So this is 22-23 at a glance. Here you can see a generous increase last year of 6% that was approved for all auxiliary personnel, and the impact that it had on this teacher assistant 1 with 0 years had an actual increase of 8% on this specific employee's salary. Again, this was in conjunction with that $15 per hour raise that was approved last year by the board. Here's another example where we have an office assistant. So some positions were initially farther below market last year, which resulted in even a greater total pay increase as it did for this specific employee. A new office assistant translated to about 17% increase last year as a result of that. And this is this one's the one we were most excited about. We realized by our valued bus attendants, a new bus attendant in 21-22 realized a 37% increase when they returned to serve our students in the 22-23 school year, putting us in the top 5 category across the DFW Metroplex. Continued progress for this year. Compensation strategy number 1 would be to continue to recommend a strong pay structure and a general pay increase to maintain those strong salaries across the board, and also make sure that our pay grade midpoints are connected to market value, as Ms. Campbell shared. That is very important to us so we can remain competitive across the market, across every school district, especially in the DFW Metroplex. Strategy number 2, again, is to recommend a general pay increase of 3%. Our Model 1 or recommendation would be 3% for all job groups. Our Model 2, which we'll go into specifics here in a later slide, is 2% for executives and 3% for all other job groups. And in both models, our starting teacher's salary with 0 years would be at $62,000, and also realizing a general pay increase for every teacher of at least $1,925. And again, the GPI calculated as a percentage of the market median for the salary structures versus the base salary, so that gives them a little bit more robust increase. And similarly, for all the other pay groups, we're doing that at the midpoint. And so that's exciting. We're taking that midpoint to provide that increase. Strategy number 3 is to, again, increase to 1% above minimum. That's minor adjustments that are going to be made to pay grades to ensure that we're aligned to the changing market and the conditions. Also making strategic adjustments made to pay grades with significant changes in market value year over year. And then finally, teacher and salary scales moving towards equidistant steps over time. That way every teacher gets that same increase year after year. The last two are the ones that I think we're most excited about, is addressing some of the issues that came up as a result of this year's study. As Ms. Campbell shared, we were significantly below market in the special ed resource and inclusion area. The recommendation was made to go from $750 to match the market at $2,000. And then for our highest need, our hearing impaired, our ECSE, our homebound, our RISE classrooms, our visually impaired, to go from $2,000 to $3,000 to again match market. Similarly, recommendation for a $450 stipend for the deaf ed transcriber, very similar to what our bilingual translators get. And then an interpreter for the deaf, additional stipend based on certification, with starting at $450 with 0 certification. And then as they continue to advance their certification level, progressively going all the way up to a $3,500 stipend. New to the recommendation for next year will be yearbook stipend, and that would be differentiated by level and size, anywhere between $1,000 and $3,000. And also, as we continue to mentor retention and valuing our workforce, is a mentor stipend of $500 per mentor teacher. And this is really to reward our current staff that is going to help not only transition new staff members, but support them throughout the year, along with campus administrators and district support. Compensation strategy number 5 is to honor external years of service from historically non-creditable entities. TEA recommends that in these areas we provide years of services only from creditable institutions such as public school systems or accredited universities. And what we are recommending is to stay competitive, to honor years of service outside of those non-creditable entities. So for nurses, if they used to work at Baylor or any United Health system, that we honor those years of service as they transition into public school system. And similarly for operations tradesmen as well, that we honor any years of service. Last example I used was plumber that worked with Roto-Rooter, that we honor those years of service as they transition when they come into our school district. I'm probably dating myself. I'm not sure Roto-Rooter still exists, but that's the example that I could come up with. Brief legislative update, as Ms. Arrieta Candelaria shared, a special session ending today, June 27th. No additional funding was approved for schools, despite the continued inflationary pressures. There will be additional special sessions that are anticipated, and if additional funding is approved, language regarding spending regulations could constrain district budgetary planning. Fort Worth ISD, of course, will comply with any changes in state law as a result of any legislative special sessions. As Ms. Campbell shared, many district budgets are very tight as she continues to provide feedback from the state. But our intent is that any compensation changes approved tonight will be considered as part of the state's requirements in the event of any increases in the basic allotment. Before I provide you with the last numbers, I wanted to talk a little bit about the employee types. I did this back on May 9th, but wanted to recapture that. Our auxiliary group, when we talk about our auxiliary employees, these are the categories that are constituted within each one of these groups. So auxiliary means teacher assistants, family engagement specialists, health associates, all of our administrative assistants throughout the district, our custodial trades, assistant forepersons. Our professional is our largest group at about 66% of the district. That would be our teachers, counselors, administrators, librarians, all of those employees that support students at the schools. And the executive with less than 1% of the staff, any executive director or up, is a total of 64 employees in the district. This is a reduction. On May 9th, I had shared a number of 74 with you. As a result of the recent reorganization, we were able to reduce that by 10 employees. So that is aligned with Dr. Ramsey's vision and as we move forward with the district charge. So that is exciting for us to share today. And finally, here is the recommendation of a 3% general increase, which comes out to about a little bit over $23 million with fringe benefits. And if we were to look at the alternate option, Model 2, 3% increase for auxiliary and professional and 2% for executives, that is $23,127,512. The difference is about $115,488 between those figures. Last slide. Our compensation manual is literally in draft, literally waiting for this budget to be approved, and will be released on July 13th, fully vetted and executed once the board approves the budget. Wanted to provide that update to the board. Thank you. We'll open it up to questions.
Thank you. Questions? Trustee Luebanos.
Thank you, President Jackson. I had a question on the budget. On the slide by budget expense by category. Why do we have an increase of $22.3 million on elementary schools? Are we getting more students? That
was what? So we don't have like specific detail, but that would be the realignment of campus staff. We did have Rolling Hills that added to that, but that was only about $2 million with regards to that particular category. We also added the special education staff. We did do a reallocation there. But I would have to look at specific detail to give you specific numbers on what each one of those actually changed.
would be great, because the difference between campus totals from last year to now is $24 million. So 22.3 is that elementary schools.
Yes, and also keep in mind that the increase in the raise is also included in that number.
Thank you.
Yes, but we can give you line by line item of what actually was the actual increase.
Thanks.
Trustee Dar.
Thank you, President Jackson. On this page right here, it was toward the beginning of your presentation.
Yes.
Can you please elaborate on what educational excellence means? That's a little bit vague.
Okay. So this is one of the priorities that was done with regards to back with the strategic plan that was approved in the fall of 2021. And so specifically related to educational excellence, there is a budget book at each one of your each one of your areas. For example, there are things like implement and monitor the use of the district standards, aligned evidence-based cultural responsive curriculum, and use of the approved district resources that support the needs of all students. So that was one category that was allocated $69,243,000 of that $94 million. There's 6 specific priorities and strategies related to that category. The next one would be create a district and campus culture that is focused on academic success for all students through support and development of principals and assistant principals. That's $237,250, and so forth. And this budget book is uploaded on the website for everyone to see what allocations are in each one of the priorities. So each one of those categories is then broken down further by the strategies.
Thank you. I appreciate that transparency.
Yes, ma'am.
And can you tell me what page you were on in the book when you were reading
Yes,
from
ma'am.
that?
31.
Thank you.
Yes. And you're referencing this slide. So those correlate to the budget book. It's just so much detailed information. It's hard to put it up on a slide.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to public comment. And our first speaker will be Ms. Holly Plemons. I'm sorry, is there another question? Oh, Mr. Lynch, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I just had a question as far as how we're grouping employee types. Is that something that we do as Fort Worth ISD, or is that kind of recommended? I think one thing that'd be helpful to see is personnel that are in the schools versus outside of the schools, and some of the recommendations, there's not many options related to that.
Yeah, great question. These are groups that are aligned to the professional group, the 66%. That would be almost 90% of the campus staff, where you have your staff, your professional staff, and then the auxiliary are the support staff that helps with campus operations and supporting to make sure that students are receiving those services. And then, of course, the smallest group being the executive. These are just the 3 large groups that make sense in the compensation manual for you to get a snapshot of how we can cluster them.
So just to be clear, like H&R finance, managers, directors, those are in professional, but aren't normally in the schools day in and day out, correct?
That's correct. Yes,
All
sir.
right. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Ryan?
Well, first I want to go back up and thank you for doing a 6% increase last year for all the paraprofessionals. I know that it helped. This year we're recommending 3%, even though food prices for the year are going to be up somewhere between 4.5 and 7.4%. And that teaching assistant that you showed that was $22,346, they're going to get an extra $670 this year. I know they will appreciate it, but I'll go back and say I'm going to go look at the recommendation number 2 with 2% on executives, because even if I'm $125,000, that's 2% cuts them down to $2,500 increase, as opposed to $670 for that teaching assistant. And I know they worked hard to get the degree to get up there, but I've got to do that because I wish I could go to 4 or 5% for those paraprofessionals, but I also know where we are district-wide, and I also know we've got everybody in the whole district that's having to pay extra on taxes this year. So I appreciate, one, that you've made a difference in there, and I really appreciate what you guys did last year to help out.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Ms. Plemons, the 3rd time will be the charm, I promise, and my apologies.
So before I get started, I want to make sure, it says on 7B is public comment, and then it says on 10B. Am I doing 7B or 10B right now?
You're doing 7B right now.
On the budget?
Yes.
And you guys just are going to like break those down? So have all the public comment on that and then come back for?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So,
And thank you for the clarification.
all right, Holly Plemons, mom of 3, taxpayer in Fort Worth ISD. On the budget, I was super sad to see that you lowered the athletics. My boys, when they were in Fort Worth ISD, they played football, and it was always humiliating when we would go to football games and see the way the other players were dressed, their helmets, the services that they had. And I really feel that increasing athletics would be a positive for Fort Worth ISD. It's not something that we're known for being a shining star over. I wanted to also point out that you do have the proposed TAD evaluations. Mr. Pena said that, I believe it was him, that said that you don't have them yet. You don't have the final, but you do have the proposed. And then when it comes to payroll and your employee retention and recruiting, if you treated your employees well, they would want to work here. And every single employee that I talk to is only here because you do pay so well, not because it's how they're treated. And I would really love to see something moving forward in how we treat our teachers so that they want to stay. That's probably why you only had, what was it? Maybe it's on my other notes of 66% of your new hires only have 0 years experience. In regards to the budget, quit spending what you don't have. I'm a stay-at-home mom. We have one income, and I have to live on a budget. And whenever I need to spend more money, and my kid has $15,000 braces, which he actually did have, and we didn't have the money for that, we had to get rid of things. You're going to have to get rid of things instead of constantly going into the fund balance, which, I'm sorry, 140 days, it's recommended of 70. That's over taxation of $338+ million of taxpayers, and I just think that's absolutely wrong. The admins, they continuously push for you guys, hurry, hurry, hurry right now. It's June 27th. This is due on the 30th. This is the first time the public is getting to see this and getting to comment on it. So I would encourage the board, in an effort of transparency, that you're actually listening to the public, to push this back and do this in May, maybe early June, considering of session. And then I'm glad that you increased the food budget, because it's absolute garbage. A lot of times it was molded and rotted. And I would encourage Dr. Ramsey and every single one of you trustees to go and eat at one elementary school, one junior high, and one high school, and look at the food that our children are being served. I thought it was super gross when my kids were here. My kids went to a different school, and I actually saw them preparing the food, and it wasn't out of packages, and it was a lot more nutritious. So I'd like for you guys to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Joe Palmer, and Mr. Palmer will be followed by Ms. Amy Super.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Joe Palmer, I'm here to talk about the budget, obviously. I'm going to applaud you for reducing the executive staff by 10 positions. I don't know where they went, if they're still within the district or if they got a better job somewhere else, but it's good to cut executive level pay. Also, getting the fund balance down to 120 to 140 days is now in an acceptable area compared to other local taxing entities in Tarrant County. According to the USDA, all food costs went up 13.5% in 2022, and they are projected to go between 6 and 10% higher for 2023. Materials are up, insurance premiums are up, fuel prices are volatile. Saudi Arabia has cut production this month. My appraisal notice, the Tarrant Appraisal District has increased my appraisal by 40%. You must talk about the rate before adopting this budget. You have to ask staff, what rate are we going to have to adopt in order to fund this budget that we're talking about. I honestly believe, to tell you quite directly, that you're doing this exactly backwards. You need to determine the rate that you need to impose on people that live in this district, and then adopt a budget, have staff dial in a budget to put the exact tax burden on the people that you think is fair. When my property taxes go up 20%, which was the average increase in Tarrant County last year, and you come up here and you say, well, we cut the tax rate by 1% or by 2%, it's really dishonest. And you know this, because the net result is going to be a tax burden increase on the people. You just heard it said. All you have to do is translate the word revenue for tax increase. That's our money. It's not revenue that you earn by making a product or some such thing. Governor Abbott, the special session was mentioned. I have to tell you, your odds of getting something out of the legislature are less now. It's more bleak now than it was during the regular session, because the special session, they can only take up legislation that is specifically called for by the governor, and he's calling to cut the property tax rate. He's also basically calling, my interpretation is to take control away from the local school districts and put it back in the hands of the state, to eliminate the M&O tax. Now would be a really good time for you to tighten up and run responsibly with your money, so that you can say to the state legislature, we don't need your help, we don't need you coming in, we're doing it. People cannot afford this budget. You don't want to listen to me, okay? We've knocked heads on other issues before. I would like to appeal to you right now and ask you to just listen to your heart, consider the voices of people in the district that have kids who cannot pay their property taxes. If you go up to that Tarrant Appraisal District, just stand there for 10 minutes. You'll see people coming out of there crying, not knowing how they're going to pay. They don't have the ability like a school district does of saying, you know what, we need more money. We're just going to open up the spigot. Please cut our taxes. Please ask questions to staff.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Ms. Amy Super.
Good evening. I got to tell you guys, I'm fluctuating between finding the fact that we are permitted to make public comments about this budget. I fluctuate between it being kind of funny and being insulting, because you're going to vote for the budget that y'all looked at tonight. You asked some questions. That's awesome. This is the same thing I saw last month. You guys have been meeting about it, fine-tuning it, whatever. The bottom line is you're still giving us a budget that's $45 million in the red. That's just not acceptable. I spoke to you about this last month. I tried to get you guys to kind of think of this, as your own budget. I'm asking you again, please think of this as if it were your own personal money. Would you ever put your family in this kind of debt? Would you ever operate a household knowing that the money that you need to continue to operate it isn't there? It doesn't exist from the start. It's complete insanity, and I'm just asking you to stop it. It's a poor example for our students, once again, which is what I mentioned last week, or last month, I should say, as well. I'd also like to talk about the debt. The debt bothers me. And the debt bothers me because our bonds are backed up by the Texas Permanent School Fund, and by that I mean that's a fund that's set up. I don't have to explain it to you guys, but for people in the audience that don't know or that are watching, they promise that they will buy the bonds from school districts, that the state will pay them back if the district can't. Well, our bond program is running out of money, and they keep having to raise it. Guess what happens when they don't have any more? They cannot guarantee those bonds for those schools anymore. Good luck at selling your bonds when your state can't guarantee your rate anymore. If you think you're spending $3 million a year on debt services, which is under your general fund, which is a little perplexing to me when we have a debt services fund. I'm sure somebody could answer that for me later. But yeah, they're going to run out of money. When we can't have a guaranteed bond program, the interest rate that you're going to expect to have to pay for people to purchase your bonds to fund your bond projects is going to go up when there is no guarantee. And ESSER money, you're about out of ESSER money. You got to spend it by the end of the year. You can't keep dipping into that and pushing it over here and pushing it and moving it around, as I hear them talk about so often, being able to move this and that. It's about gone. Start living within the means that our taxpayers come up with, because you guys don't produce anything, as Mr. Palmer mentioned. You have to live off of what taxpayers can give you. Please start doing it. I'm begging you. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for your comments. This public hearing is now closed. We'll move to action agenda items number 9. Item A, discussion and action to approve compensation plan for the 2023-2024 school year. Do I have a motion? And Dr. Ramsey, would you like to make a comment?
I just want to clarify that because there's a recommendation and an alternate, that the motion would have to be specific to which one you would be asking the board to vote on.
Trustee Ryan?
I move we adopt the alternate option on the compensation plan.
Do I have a second for Dr. Ryan?
I just have a point of clarification. So are we voting just on the compensation, not on the budget right now?
We're voting to approve the compensation plan for 2023-2024
Okay.
solely. Thank you. Dr. Ryan has a motion on the floor to approve the alternate option. Do we have a second? Trustee Dar has a second. Any comments? Seeing and hearing none. And the motion passes 5 yes, 1 abstain, and 3 noes. Moving on to 9B, discussion and action to approve adoption of the proposed 2023-2024 budgets for the General Fund, Debt Service Fund, and Child Nutrition Fund. Do I have a motion? I'll move. May I have a second?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please, Trustee Lynch.
No, I just, I wanted to thank Carmen. I know in my short time, he spent a lot of time putting this together, and I know everybody in the district did. And I appreciate you fielding, a whole lot of questions for me over the last little bit. I just want to share, I know it's hard and where we were to where we're getting to, but, fundamentally for me, I want to see a balanced budget. And I like some of the things we're doing for the people in the district, but I also think that we need to be willing to make some concessions as a district too. So I just wanted to share those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lynch. And we have a motion on the floor by Trustee Jackson and a second by Trustee Phillips. Do we have any discussion? Trustee Luebanos.
I have a comment. Thank you for meeting with me last week on this budget. And like Trustee Lynch mentioned, I would also like to see a balanced budget. I know we are working hard and we are getting there closer and closer. I am going to approve this deficit budget. I'm going to vote to approve this deficit budget this time because this is what the superintendent is requesting we need to achieve, to improve achievement for all of our students. But at the end of the day, I am going to, as a trustee, I'm going to hold the superintendent accountable for those results. We are approving this budget because we want our students to succeed. So I would like to see next year those scores to go up because we have the money. We are approving the budget, the money for our students to succeed. So I would like to see that next year.
Thank you, Trustee Luebanos. Any other comments? Motion by Jackson. Trustee Bridges?
Yes, please. Let me just say this. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to vote for the budget, but I am really concerned in terms of when I see a population of students that we are unable to move the needle. and we are just spending too much money, and we are not reaching that group. That concerns me. And I'm saying this, that I want to see a whole different level of attention to that group. Because when I go to the barbershop, when I'm at church, it is something that, and I don't want to keep saying this, that I keep hearing, why can't we educate these students? And to me, it's more than just the dots and the numbers. Because when these kids don't make it, there's a whole different crop that's pulling them in. And it bothers me. Because that's my neighbor across the street's kid or grandkid. And I can't, I'm disappointed in the presentation that we didn't even have an answer for it. I'm sorry. I'm bothered by it. I am really, really bothered by it. Because I have to answer to that. Because I'm doing a listening session with a group of parents about saying what I'm asking of you to do as parents. And I'm not seeing anything that I can say that hey, look, guys, I know we're spending the money in this area, but this is what the improvement that we are going to see in our kids. And I'm bothered by that, guys. I am totally bothered by that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any other comments? Let's please move to voting. And the motion passes 6 yes, 2 no, 1 abstain. Moving on to number 10, call public hearing to order. We will now call the public hearing to order to discuss the 2023-2024 Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, Consolidated Federal Grant Application. I'll turn it over to Dr. Ramsey and leadership at this time.
Thank you. Our CFO is already up there, so I'm going to ask Marjette Crespo to please come and join her at the presentation table.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. President Jackson, members of the board, Dr. Ramsey. I'm Carmen Arieta Candelaria, Chief Financial Officer for the district, and with me today is Senior Officer from Grants and Development Department. So we're here to present the 23-24 ESSA, otherwise known as Every Student Success Act. We call it ESSA, a consolidated application. This is the public comment portion. Just to give you a little bit of background on what ESSA is the federal K-12 education law, and it was signed into law in 2015, and replaced the No Child Left Behind Act, and was and reauthorized the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. In accordance with the United States Code, Title 20, Chapter 70, and so forth, every application is any entity that's planning to submit a federal grant application must provide a reasonable opportunity for public comment on the application before it is submitted. This is a new process that's required by TEA this year, that we also give the public an opportunity to provide comment during a board meeting. So before we had done other mechanisms of trying to get public comment, but now we're required to also do it during a board meeting. And so we've done, in the past, we've given parents and family members an opportunity to provide input around each CIP, or otherwise known as our Campus Improvement Plan, and each school document, and each of the documents has been produced by the school and consider their input. Additionally, through Marjette's group, Ms. Crespo's group, the Office of Grants and Development, they post the information that's relevant to each grant for comment on the website. Before I turn it over to Ms. Crespo to kind of give you a little bit more information on the dollar amounts that we submit, this is a breakdown of each of the portions of the Act. You may have heard some of these references Title I, but in actuality, there's three parts to Title I. Part A, which is to improve basic programming. Part C is migrant education. Part D is prevention and intervention for delinquent, neglected, and at-risk youth. And then there's Title II, III, and IV that also provide some additional dollars to the state. Title II is for supporting effective instruction. Title III supports English language acquisition and immigrant. And then Part IV, Part A, is student support and academic enrichment. We also provide some funding as a pass-through for our private schools. We're required to provide them that information. For the public and certainly for the board, there is a little QR code there where the application draft and the summary of the programs are available. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Crespo.
Thank you. Good night. So my next portion is the amount of funding allotted to the district for each one of the sections of the consolidated application. Title I, Part A, in order to ensure all children have fair, equal, and significant opportunity to obtain high-quality education and prepare for college success, Forward ISD received a little over $35 million. For Title I, Part D, that is to support programs for children and youth who are neglected, delinquent, or at risk, is $361,139. Title II, Part A, which focus in preparing, training, and recruiting high-quality teachers, principals, and other school leaders, we receive $3,359,116. Title III, Part A, is to ensure English language learners and immigrant students attain English proficiency and develop high levels of academic achievement in English. $2.6 million, a little over $2.6 million, and an immigrant sub-grant, $379,755. Title IV, Part A, we receive to support student academic enrichment by increasing the capacity of state educational agencies, local educational agencies, schools, and local community on the whole child education. We received $2.8 million. Some of the application funds are distributed in different ways. In the case of Title I, we have to provide funding to the campuses. We have in the district right now 121 campuses that receive Title I funds, 44 secondary campuses, 77 elementary campuses. The application covers approximately 502 full-time positions at campus and district levels, and the majority of the positions are serving campuses, and the positions examples are in there: teachers, teacher assistant, instructional coaches, data analysts, and IT specialists. Also, in the application, we are including services to family and students, such as supporting the ACT testing, the support of the on-ramp dual enrollment program for professional development and students enrollment, AVID implementation, family resource centers, behavioral support, family and community outreach. Other initiatives covered through the applications in different levels is the academic content coaches, instructional coaches, homeless and neglected student services, professional learning, recruitment of teachers in hard-to-fill areas. So that is the brief of the presentation. Any questions?
Any questions?
I just have a question.
Trustee Lynch?
So just to be clear, this is all title money that's captured by the district, but it's not included in the general fund, correct?
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Trustee Martinez?
Thank you for this presentation. Could you tell me or talk a little bit about how these funds are evaluated or the evaluation process?
We have different portions of the evaluation. The portion that goes to the campuses, allocated in the campus and represented in the campus improvement plan, is evaluated at that level. So the campuses have different tracking mechanisms inside the campus improvement plan to show how they are performing the implementation and how successful it is. We call it a living document, so they can come back in the middle of the year or at any point when something is not working and adjust the strategy and adjust the budget accordingly. At district level, we have a different system, so we are working now towards aligning everything through ARI and measures of success. So we are requesting all the departments that have performance to have that measure of success and different evaluations, different periods or cycles of evaluation. Some programs require a little longer time of implementation in order to show success. So we are right now tracking, have finished the year, just finished the year. We have that information for baseline, and then we will present results for next year to leadership to show what will continue and we will not continue to be offered. And we get information from the campuses also. Principals have specific needs, and they are very vocal on what is working. So we integrate what is data with the qualitative information that we receive from them.
Trustee Luay-Benos.
Thank you. Title I, Part C. Can you be more specific?
Yes, sir. We have SSA with the Region 11. We have so many students that are part of migrant families, so those are families that have agricultural work or seasonal work and move across the country for different seasonal works. So because the amount of funding is not that much and we have, the families vary year to year, we partner with our neighbor districts through Region 11 and funnel the funds so they can consolidate the services and be more efficient to serve our families. Being a seasonal work means that they may move faster than the school year, so they are able to provide services when they move and to connect them school district to school district.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, at this time, Trustee Bridges.
Could you explain Title I, Part D to me, please?
Yes, sir. Title I Part D is located to support students that are designated as delinquent or neglected. Those are students that are in GJIP or students that are in our shelters, homeless shelters, or Better Woman shelters. And they get coded in a specific category. And through our system, we report it to the state, and the state send it back to us. And we had to provide services to help them to transition between campuses or transition between the placement where they are put and prevent them to go back to there if possible. So it's different strategies. We funnel services to different organizations in the district to help us serve our students that are in those placements.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Those are great questions.
Okay, we will move now to comments. First speaker is Holly Plemons. Second will be Meredith Bowman. Ms. Plemons.
Can y'all hear me? Okay. Holly Plemons, mom of 3, taxpayer in Fort Worth ISD. First, wanted to give you guys a little bit of a lesson on the Department of Education. That is where we get our Title I funding from. It's a complete violation of the Constitution. The Constitution was not set up to provide for education. And then it was set up for the federal government only gets involved when the state can't handle it. The state only gets involved when local can't handle it. So receiving this funding, I think it's a complete violation of the Constitution. It was something that was voted on by, let's see, our Congress, and unfortunately they did not agree with me and get rid of it, but that is something that people are going to be continuing to push for, is to get rid of the Department of Education. So depending on this funding is something that you should start thinking about undoing. And then the AVID implementation. That is a great program. I read about it, totally wanted my son to go. My son said that he didn't want to go, so he was not a part of it. And it's a very expensive program. And Fort Worth ISD has had that program for a really long time now. And by now, you guys should be able to create your own AVID type program to be implementing it and not having to go with the actual AVID implementation of it. And so I would love to see you guys do that. And I didn't get to say it earlier, so I will just say this really quick. The bus drivers making $15.10 an hour. Chipotle starts at $15 an hour. These bus drivers, they're driving our children. That's our future. That's my most precious cargo in the car is my children. And giving the admin, which you approved a 2% raise for the admin, that they already make more money than over 90% of the people that have to pay taxes in Fort Worth ISD. And you gave them a raise, and you're having our bus drivers make the same as the teenagers at Chipotle. I think that's really disgusting, and I appreciate Dr. Ryan and Mr. Lynch for voting no on the budget. Wallace, I wish you would have done more than abstained, but I really appreciated all of the things that you had to say. You're listening to people, you're hearing the problems that we're seeing, and so I want to applaud the three of you guys for doing that. I won't take up any more of your time until the next public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bowman will be followed by Mr. Palmer, who will be followed by Ms. Super.
Good evening, Dr. Ramsey and Board of Trustees. I will say I would like to see a little bit more of a detailed, I guess, PowerPoint of this presentation. $43 million in all of this is quite a lot of money, and since there's really not really, I mean, there's not much specifics on how much, where everything goes, and not understanding what really is going on with this. And there's a lot of things that have been put up on the screen, and like Ms. Plumman said, I'm sure a lot of these things have been going on for several years. I just would like to see a little bit more information to be able to make a valid comment. I mean, this is a very vague thing, and I'm not real sure where to find all this information. But that would definitely be very helpful, and just thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer will be followed by Ms. Super.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to read some of these again. Title I, Part A, to ensure that all children have a fair, equal, and significant opportunity to obtain a high-quality education and prepare for college success. To support programs for children and youth who are neglected, delinquent, or at risk. Preparing, training, and recruiting high-quality teachers, principals, or other school leaders. To ensure that English learners and immigrant students attain English proficiency and develop high levels of academic achievement in English. I would like to ask whether you think these goals are being met in this district. I know we like to think of federal tax dollars as money that comes from far away, and it really has no connection to us when we pay our taxes, but it really does. And I've mentioned it before. The great economist Milton Friedman talks about the 4 ways that you can spend money. You can spend your own money on yourself. You can spend your own money on somebody else. You can spend somebody else's money on yourself, or you can spend other people's money on other people. And that's the most dangerous kind, because you don't fully appreciate the work that went into making the money, and you're not fully on the hook. You don't bear the brunt or the pain whenever that money is wasted. You can just say, I had the best intentions. And I hear a lot of good intentions. Trustee Bridges, you really connect with me. You're from a different district, but you're speaking my language. I'm going to tell you, and you know this to be true, they're going to come back again the next year with another budget, and they know that you're going to have complaints, deeply felt complaints, and they know that nothing's going to happen. They know that nobody is going to stand up, and you're not going to get a majority vote against the budget. You know it, and I know it. And I know it because it happened last year, and it happened the year before that. Staff runs the school district. And to highlight that point a little bit more, Ms. Bowman mentioned it, this presentation is a gloss over. This presentation doesn't give us any valid information about how that money is going to be spent, about where you intend to spend it. It's just millions of dollars coming in. $35 million to ensure that all children have a fair, equal, and significant opportunity to obtain a high-quality education. Do you think that every dollar of that is going to go toward that? Do you think that every dollar of the money that came to recruit good teachers is going to go directly into those teachers' pocketbooks, into their paychecks? Or how much of it is going to be absorbed and soaked up in the administrative headquarters that you decided to build? Your motivation is good, your intentions are good. I know your heart is good, Trustee Bridges. The disconnect is action. You can move to reconsider the budget and vote no.
Ms. Super?
Okay, again, just so we're all clear, we're getting to speak because you're required to let us speak on this subject, so no one be confused about that. This is not a privilege, it's not an opportunity, it is a right, legal right. Okay, so a little bit of background. I did listen to the presentation, but I also did my research at the U.S. Department of Education. ESSA's been around a long time. 1965, LBJ signed it into law. It's been tweaked quite a bit. Obama did a lot of tweaking to it back in 2012. But the main thing they speak about is it is intended to advance equity by upholding critical protections for Americans' disadvantaged and high-needs students. Well, I think Trustee Bridges made a good point tonight. We're throwing money, more money, and we're not seeing results. So what's the logical conclusion to draw from that? I would suggest the logical conclusion is money doesn't solve this particular problem in its entirety. Okay, I just want you to really, really think about that for a minute, okay? It's not going to solve all the problems. The problems aren't actually yours to solve completely as a school and an administration. It starts in the homes, starts in the communities, starts in the churches, and supported by the schools. It's not all on you. And I'm sorry that you feel that it is, and that's where we are with this. $45 million, I believe Mr. Lynch clarified, that's not reflected as revenue. So if you take that $44 million, $135 million, that almost wipes out your $45 million deficit. So, hey, looks like we're almost back there in the red when you get that federal money. The last thing I'd like to say is, when I hear the word grant, and I know it's true for other people, you tend to think of a grant as something that people donated, charitable. This is not that. This is our federal tax dollars. It's just money coming from another bucket, but it's our money that's created by our efforts, our businesses, the things that we do that actually produce something and generate something. And it won't continue to exist if you keep spending it poorly and not educating the next generation who can continue what we have been doing that has created this money that you guys then are able to spend. Hold the district administrators responsible. Please be prudent with these funds. $44 more million. You guys are out of the red almost. Awesome.
At this time, we will close the ESSA Consolidated Federal Grant Application hearing. Thank you all for your comments. The public hearing is now closed. We'll move number 12 on our agenda, which is public comment. At this time, we will hear public comment addressing items on this agenda as well as items of a general nature or topics not specifically listed on this agenda. Let me remind you, please, that because of restrictions by the Texas Open Meetings Act, board members may not engage in a verbal exchange about a subject that has not been posted. We will listen and we will take notes, but this board is prohibited from responding to any inquiries made during a board meeting on any topic not posted on the agenda. However, the board may reply with 1, a statement of specific factual information given in response to the inquiry, 2, recitation of existing policy in response to the inquiry, or 3, direct the person to visit with staff about the issue. While the board listens to concerns of a general nature, speakers should practice normal rules of decorum. Vulgar language and profanity will not be tolerated as this is a public meeting and our students are watching. Additionally, disruptions of the meeting will not be tolerated. We ask the audience to refrain from interrupting speakers and playing audio recordings while they present to the board. Any employee, parent, or other member of the public is asked to comply with the appropriate grievance policy to have a complaint heard pursuant to the applicable board policy. No presentation may exceed 3 minutes unless the speaker has prior approval for additional time because of the use of a translator. Speakers who require the assistance of a translator are permitted double the allotted time of speakers who do not require the assistance of a translator. As soon as the speaker begins speaking, the time clock to your left, my right, will start. Furthermore, a speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another speaker. Also, this evening, some individuals would like to share their voice and their opinions, but they're unable to physically attend. Those written statements were shared with the Board of Trustees prior to this meeting and will not be read aloud during the board meeting. It is essential to gain as much public input as possible, and we understand together we're stronger and build better solutions when we maximize public input. I ask that you please observe these rules for the purpose of effectively accomplishing the business of this meeting in a timely manner this evening. We have 8 speakers in general public comment. The first is Tom Ellery, who will be followed by Miriam Lambert. Is Tom present? If not, Ms. Lambert, if you would please come forward. And after Ms. Lambert will be Mr. Bob Willoughby.
Hello, I'm Miriam Lambert, a former Fort Worth ISD employee and a taxpayer. A lot of what I've got to say is repetition, but repetition is the best way to learn. I'm here to remind you that you have an obligation to be good stewards of our money. Every penny that y'all spend is off the backs of Fort Worth ISD citizens. Whether it's property taxes, sale taxes, lottery tickets, it comes from our pockets. And I would especially like to thank the trustees that voted against allowing new employees in the executive area to live outside of Fort Worth ISD. To think that we would hire somebody and allow them to live in an area where they're not paying taxes to the very system they're working for is outrageous. And to think that we would allow new employees to live in an area where their children, should they have any, do not attend Fort Worth ISD public schools, not charter schools, not private. They need skin in the game. They need to care about what happens in their schools. One of the things that I noticed that totally blew my mind during the presentation on how the budget gets out of hand, y'all went to ISD districts that were thriving with deficit budgets. That's like sending an alcoholic to a bar to learn how to quit drinking. You send the alcoholic to AA, to people who've already learned to live life without alcohol. You go to ISDs that are living within their means. You don't go to people that are living outside their means and go, what do we do? With that kind of logic, how do we expect to teach our students logic? Why don't we give a line item detailed budget to our advanced placement math students and let them figure out the budget? They could do a good job. Many of them have gotten college credits in the college level courses, and they could help you. But no one can help you without a line item budget. That is mandatory. Thank you.
Mr. Bob Willoughby will be followed by Ms. Holly Plemons.
How you doing? It's the first time for me to speak down here. I guess I'm going to get off track just a little bit here, but what I find in our city, I don't care what title you have, board member, pastor, senator, it does not excuse you from your obligation to your civil duties in your own city, okay? You still have a right to our civil stuff here and things going on at City Hall. I don't know what's happened over the last 50 years, but I don't think we're getting out of our schools what we should have by what's come out, what I've seen. 70 years ago, I mean not 70 years, back in the 70s, Mayor Mattie Parker could not have taken away freedom of speech at City Hall like she did. We don't have the freedom to speak at City Hall like other cities do, okay? It's been taken away. Now, if you don't understand the importance of it because you never use it, that's okay. It's like a weapon. You don't never want to lose it. So get smart and look on the other side and figure out, why did she take it away? That's the worst thing a mayor can do to a city, okay? And what I'm here for is you people have more power being in the seats you are, and I want you to do your civil duty. I want you to come to City Hall and demand to put back our freedom of speech. They've laughed about it and make jokes about it, but we don't have a 3 minutes to speak on, okay? We used to have free 3 minutes to speak on whatever you wanted to as a citizen. That's been taken away. Now, you can speak on agenda items, which they really messed that up downtown too, but you can speak on those partly. And they'll laugh at you when I say you took away our right to speak. They'll say, you're speaking. No, I'm not speaking on what I want to. I'm only speaking on what you're allowing me to. This is not leadership. This is dictatorship is what it is. And I've watched it over the last 10 years. Now, 10 years ago, I have to be honest, I didn't know what was going on downtown. I was totally done like 90% of our city is right now what's going on downtown. As a matter of fact, my hair was brown then too. But I really got involved down there because I live here. And I am really frightened of what's going on downtown. Our voting is down to around 3%. Mattie Parker only got 97% of the city did not vote for Mattie Parker, our mayor, okay? Gina Bibbins got reelected to District 5 with only about 2%. That's it, out of 100,000 people, a little over 2,000 people. So what do you teach civics in school anymore? Because we need to teach civics in school. These kids need to learn when they come out of high school what district they live in, who their council member is, and who their mayor is, okay? They need to learn something about local government. And without the freedom of speech, we have nothing. This sets on a different level from all your money, all your bills, all your stuff you're doing is worthless. And you really don't care about these kids' future if you don't care about their freedom to speak at City Hall. It's up to us to protect that. Even if they don't want to use it, it should never go away, okay? And they should never lose it. Now, they took it away. I know why. I've been down there for 10 years. And I know the overall picture, and I can't give you the overall picture. But I can tell you enough. Just look at the other side of the coin. Why would they do that to you? All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Holly Plemons will be followed by Elva Camacho, who will be followed by Meredith Bowman.
Holly Plemons, mom of 3, taxpayer in Fort Worth ISD. I have emailed every single one of you my talking points. If you guys gave me an hour, I wouldn't have enough time to talk to you about everything that's in this agenda. This is what it looks like and it's printed. And this one right here is B17. This is for your leadership schools. This is Renaissance. So right here, you'll be able to see this right here. This stack of papers is 223 total checks that Fort Worth ISD has given over to Renaissance Learning. That totals over $5 million over a 10-year period. And I pulled the data on all of these 4 schools that are listed, and all of them are at least 93.5 low income, and they're all over 90% minority. And so I feel you're picking on these schools, kind of like how Mr. Sines did with the Ohio State survey, picking on these schools. They're low income, they're minority. None of them are hitting over 50% on their STAR scores. That's including meets and exceeds is what I combined together. None of them are doing that. And whenever you look at how much each one of these schools is getting per student, it is an entire year and a half of what I'm going to be paying for private tuition for my children. And these kids are not performing. And in this agenda, you have about 5 or 6 other Leadership Academy things on the agenda from Mr. Sines that you're going to be throwing more money at these schools. Where's the data? Where's the data that shows it improves? Here is 10 years, and it hasn't improved anything. And you're going to approve another agenda item for more money for something that's not working. I would ask for all the trustees to ask, where's the data? Where is the data for every single one of these Leadership Academy agenda items? And then this Renaissance, it's data mining. It's got surveys in it. Did y'all put it in the survey portal? You didn't. So parents are not knowing that you're surveying the kids. There's a handy-dandy chart on the Renaissance website that shows all the data that you guys can collect, including parents' numbers and email addresses. They say that they store and share data. They have third-party website links on the app that take the kids to another site where there's no protection. Those sites are allowed to store and share the data. This is data mining, and you're going to get yourself sued if you don't knock it off and start getting parental consent. Thank you.
Thank you. Elva Camacho will be followed by Meredith Bowman, who will be followed by Joe Palmer, and our final speaker will be Donna Collins.
Hi, good evening, school board members. My name's Elva Camacho. I'd like to share 2 verses from the Bible. Proverbs 20:20, and this is going toward our budget. A wise man saves for the future. A wise man saves for the future. You guys are not being very wise with taxpayers' money. The millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that are spent, and the complacency that you guys have sitting here every year and listening and sharing our concerns and showing budgets, doing your little slides every year. It's the same thing, and the same thing happens. It just keeps getting passed, taxpayers' expense. Thank you to Dr. Bridges and Dr. Ryan for voting no. You guys are really listening to us, and we really appreciate it. As a Latina, and there's lots of Latinas up there, and I see, and Latinos. I mean, you know, we are very conservative people. You guys are in leadership. You should use those conservative tactics that we are used in our culture and our families. Our money is very important. Our children are very important, and it's being wasted. The ESSER funds are running out. 2024 is around the corner. You guys are not looking at that at all. Where's that money? How is that money gonna be compensated in your budget? You should be using it. You should have started doing it last year, or any preparations, because that money doesn't last forever. And who pays for it? We do. Taxpayers, again. A wise man saves for the future, right? Let's see, and that's a lot of money. You talk about our children and all the data that's being stored, and that goes to my second verse that I want to share with you, is Colossians 2:8. See to it that no one takes, and this is a verse about children, you know, using and how they're influenced. See to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit, according to human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of the world, and not according to Christ. I'm a God-fearing woman, and I don't need anybody telling me how to talk to my kids about sex, how to talk to them about other things that are going on. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. I would like to ask you to deny Agenda Item B8. I'm disappointed on the passing the budget, but I do thank the gentleman that, the three of you, that one that abstained, to say no this evening. Branching Minds. Branching Minds has been in Fort Worth ISD for 5 years. And this year it is going to cost over $500,000 to continue. It's already cost the district $1.5 million. And it's had zero results, improvements, because there's no data to prove that it actually has done anything well. And let's just find the definition of what Branching Minds is actually doing. It's defined as a teachers and learning scientists working together to bridge research and practice and develop innovative invention management software technologies, or RTI-MTSS. No one on their team is an actual teacher. Maybe they have a few years of experience teaching, but most of them are the learning scientists. What does that even mean? Well, the founder is an actual activist, by the way, and most of the things that are in here are, well, it's actually directly connected to CASEL, and if you don't know what CASEL is, I highly recommend you look that up. That's all the SEL behavior things. And CASEL was founded by the Bill, or is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That's those behavior data collecting that was from the Panorama surveys, which was co-founded by Merrick Garland's son-in-law. There's connections there. The teachers input the information. It's behavioral discipline, psychology information, and that's for referrals for these students. The Branching Mind states that SEL and behavioral data are collected, then the educators know what they're supposed to use from the AI's findings, not human findings, the AI findings. The website states the support recommended is directly linked to CASEL, SEL, and behavioral skills. Again, where's the data? What about reading, writing, and math? Book, paper, pencil. Stop doing surveys or behavioral assessments, because this has those in there also. Do you think it's possible these SEL programs create the problems that we're seeing? And is this truly the solution to harvesting our children's data without parent consent? Because it's up to Fort Worth ISD to gain parent consent to enter the data into the system. They state that this is trusted to do by Fort Worth ISD, and then Fort Worth ISD steps in as the parent consent. They expect you to follow FERPA. Do you remember Ms. Plemons, myself, and Mr. Daniel? We all had filed 15 grievances over data being taken without parent consent. It takes students' first name, last name, grade, gender, race, ethnicity, language proficiency, IEP status, date of birth, and it's stored on each student for their entire time in Fort Worth ISD. This is the school-to-prison pipeline. Do parents consent to that? No. Then I found that Branching Minds collects all the teachers' data. My information.
Time. Thank you. Mr. Joe Palmer will be followed by Donna Collins.
Madam President, members of the board, I have a friend, former church member, who was a World War II bomber pilot. He flew a B-17. And he was shot down over Antwerp, Belgium, and he spent 2 years in a camp. And actually the camp that he was in was the basis for the movie The Great Escape. I used to give him a ride frequently home, and every time I would drop him off, it'd be like clockwork. He would say, "Thanks for the ride," and he would slam the door, and I loved it. I'm usually protective of my cars, but I knew that when he slammed the door, it meant he was still alive, he was still with us. But one day when I let him out, he didn't slam the door, and I looked over and his hand was there, and he apparently wanted to shake my hand. And he said, "I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing for our beloved republic." And I said, "I've never picked up a rifle. I didn't spend 2 years in a camp. I haven't done what you've done. Why would you say something like that to me?" He said, "You don't have to pick up a rifle. All you have to do is pick up a pen, pick up the phone, and that's what you're doing." You know, a lot of people wonder why I come to these school board meetings, and it's not just because my property taxes. So when my taxes go up, everybody else's most other people's property taxes go up in Tarrant County the last several years. What bothers me is that what people like him fought for is being wasted, and it's being co-opted by this shadowy, nefarious business. This is not conspiratorial. This is stuff that you've been busted for. The data mining. And these kids are coming out of school and they don't know anything. Can they even sign a document? Do they have a signature? Do they know laws? And this is not a left-right thing. This is not a left-right. That's how they get us. I want everybody to be educated. I want kids to know what their rights are when they get pulled over on the side of the road. Do they have to consent to searches? Empower these kids. What are my rights? What are my rights in a courtroom? How does this thing operate around me, this world, this country, these laws? I go back to the law all the time because it's a special thing to be able to know about. You see the video clips on YouTube. Kid doesn't know, kid opens his mouth, ruins his life. Are these kids being taught? They're really not. These people that have built this country, they've fought in all these wars and died, they might not have known what they were dying for. They might have thought they were dying for something noble or something different than what was actually the cause. But what we have is something really special here. And we're just letting it go to waste. If you have concerns about these kids and you have concerns about the education level that they're not getting, please push hard. Push hard against staff. Push hard against this apparatus, this machine that is for profit, that is for personal gain. Please wake up. Please do something.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Donna Collins.
He's tall. Hi, I'm Donna Collins. I'm a taxpayer here in Fort Worth. And after having reviewed the agenda for tonight's meeting, I'm struck with what I noticed about the items that are listed. Increase student achievement, which is one of the stated strategic goals of Fort Worth ISD. Almost 100% of them contain some component of DEI or SEL initiatives, such, for example, as Holly spoke about Renaissance learning, are extremely egregious with their data mining of student information. That's personally identifiable information known as PII, including information about their home life. There's 2 reading programs worth millions. Why can't we just use phonics that we know works instead of all these computer programs? Do teachers today go to school to learn how to run a computer program for their students? What about long-established, experienced teachers? Oh, wait, those resigned or retired after they could when all of the CRT, DEI, and SEL stuff started, but some couldn't, and I feel for them. It appears to me that every subject is taught through a biased computer-based learning program. Newer generation teachers that grew up with computers maybe haven't struggled so much, but what about the long and established experienced teachers? They weren't indoctrinated in college like the ones coming out today, but most of those resigned or retired if they could when all of this CRT, DEI, and SEL stuff started, but some couldn't, and I feel for them. Just think what we could pay our teachers if we didn't have to buy all of these computer teaching programs worth millions of dollars, not to mention consulting programs. On this agenda alone tonight, Dr. Ramsey is asking you to spend $80 million of taxpayer money just in one full sweep. I'm new to Fort Worth, and from what I'm hearing from other speakers tonight, we're not getting results. So I haven't been here for that history, but that's appalling to me. And speaking of Dr. Angelica Ramsey, how does her community engagement events fulfill strategic goals of Fort Worth ISD? Maybe she's just getting her name out there on the taxpayers' dime because she wants to run for public office. But wait, she just might make more than the governor. In addition, I noticed that many of the amendments to memorandums of understanding, or MOUs as they are referred to, don't have the attached amendments or memorandums included. Are these things all going to be voted on during one consent agenda? How can the board vote on something they can't review? Or is it just not visible to the public? Well, that's not transparency. As I have said before, you're not meeting the desires of your community, and that the values you are teaching don't match theirs. As Alva said, we're a primarily conservative community. As long as you continue down this political agenda slope that you're on, you will have
Thank you.
population decline.
Thanks to each of you for sharing your thoughts this evening. We'll move to number 13, discussion of consent agenda items. As board president, I'm making the following statement in accordance with board policy BBFA local. This is a reminder to each board member of the legal conflict of interest requirements and disclosure requirements you may have for matters under consideration on this agenda for this meeting. If required by law, board members shall recuse themselves from all discussion and shall abstain from voting on any matter pertaining to such a disclosure. Let the record reflect that item B, as in boy, 34, approved renewal of service management system, is being pulled from the consent agenda and will not be addressed this evening. I ask the trustees at this time if there are any questions or comments regarding consent agenda items. Trustee Dar will be followed by Trustee Bridges.
Thank you. Item P on the consent agenda, approved purchase of fixtures, furniture, and equipment for Pascal High School auditorium. Is there a timeline for when this, I know it's pending board approval, but is there a timeline for when this will be installed and ready for use?
Yes, actually, Trustee Dar, our vendors are ready pending board approval, and our hopes is by the first week of August that all the repairs stated will be completed by then.
Thank you. I appreciate that information.
Sure.
On item U, give me just a second. Actually, I think that's an action agenda item, so disregard. I'll deal with that when we get to the action agenda. Thank you.
Trustee Bridges.
Item B16, could you talk to me a little bit more about that, please?
So Trustee Bridges, are you asking about the new teacher center coaching models?
Yes.
Okay. So after our efficiency study with ERS about 4 years ago, it was shared that we had multiple coaching models within our district. Following the ERS efficiency study, we decided to adhere to only one coaching model. We chose new teacher centers, so we're going into our 4th year of that coaching model. Those are instructional coaches. So all of our instructional coaches are trained through the new teacher center model that are on our campuses. They support and build capacity of our classroom teachers. This board item is not only professional development for our teachers, but it also, they come on to, in our district, to deliver on-site PD and coaching in the classroom.
Thank you, Ms. Molinar.
Yes, sir.
Here's my concern. I know it's coming out of ESTR money, and I'm going to be back on that bandwagon again. My concern is that we've spent $130 million thus far on the money that we've got through ESTR. But the problem is the highest need students, the needle is not moving at all. And the primary purpose of ESTR money was to focus on those who had learning loss. Now, granted, by comparison to a lot of other items, it's not a gazillion dollars, but it concerns me that, once again, that it's more money that we're spending, and we're not moving on the needle. We're not moving the needle on those high need students, and I'm gonna be. I'm just concerned.
Okay, do we have any other questions on consent? All right, the time is 7:50 PM. The date is Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. We will now recess and reconvene for executive session as authorized by Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code under Sections 551, 071, 2, 4, and 6. In accordance with the open meetings law, the board opened the meeting at 5:31 PM with a quorum present, recessed and reconvened open session, adjourned regular session, convened executive session, adjourned executive session, and now reconvened open session at 8:47 PM with a quorum present. We are up to consent agenda, and note again that item B34, approved renewal of service management system, was pulled from the consent agenda earlier in the meeting and will not be addressed this evening. Moving to 18, accept consent agenda. Do I have a motion accepting the consent agenda? Thank you, Trustee Phillips with the motion. I'll take the second. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Counting to 15 because sometimes you delay. And let's move to voting. And the consent agenda passes 8 yes, 1 no. Action item B, the Executive Director of Athletics position will not be addressed this evening. Do I have a motion to accept the personnel recommendations discussed this evening during executive session? Trustee Rodriguez with the motion, thank you. Second, Trustee Ryan. Chief of Governance and Strategic Communications and Executive Director of Specialized Learning. And Dr. Rodriguez has moved, Dr. Ryan on the second. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. Dr. Ramsey, would you please introduce our two new employees?
Yes, thank you. This evening, the board is approved for Chief of Governance and Strategic Communications, Tony Cordova, and the Executive Director of Specialized Learning, Audrey Thomas. Congratulations and welcome to Fort Worth ISD.
Moving to 20, action agenda items. Discussion and action to approve proposed termination of certain probationary contract employees for good cause pursuant to Chapter 21 of Texas Education Code. I move to approve the administration's recommendation and propose the termination of Mr. Kenneth Lyons' probationary employment contract for good cause in accordance with Chapter 21 of the Texas Education Code. May I please have a second? Second from Dr. Ryan. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting, please. And the motion passes unanimously. There is no need for 20B or 20C. We will move to 20D. Discussion and action to approve termination of Felipe Ramirez term contract for good cause pursuant to Chapter 21 of the Texas Education Code. I move to approve the termination of Mr. Felipe Ramirez term employment contract for good cause in accordance with Chapter 21 of the Texas Education Code. May I please have a second? Trustee Ryan. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, please move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. F, discussion and action to approve amendment to meal rate with Aramark based on adjusted consumer price index from the Texas Department of Agriculture. Do I have a motion? Trustee Dar, I have a second. Second, Trustee Lueganos, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. G, discussion and action to approve flooring, installation, and services. Do I have a motion? Moved by trustee Bridges. Do I have a second? Second by trustee Phillips. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, may we please move to voting? And the motion, missing one person. Trustee Luebanos, do I? And the motion passes unanimously. Moving to H, discussion and action to approve aesthetic construction for single-site projects. Do I have a motion? Moved by trustee Phillips, thank you. I'll take the second. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting. And the motion passes 8 yes, 1 abstain. I, discussion and action to approve purchase of fleet parts and service repairs. Do I have a motion? Moved by trustee Ryan. I have a second. Second by trustee Phillips, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting, please. And the motion passes unanimously. J, discussion and action to approve purchase of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning equipment and services. Do I have a motion? Trustee Martinez, second. Trustee Dorr, any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. K, discussion and action to approve purchase of paper for warehouse stock. Do I have a motion? Trustee Rodriguez, second. Trustee Phillips. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, please move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. L, discussion and action to approve purchase of minor supplies for maintenance operations and the warehouse. Do I have a motion? Trustee Martinez. And second, trustee Ryan. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting. Trustee Bridges. And the motion passes unanimously. Moving to M, discussion and action to approve purchase of trash and recycled dumpster services. Do I have a motion? Trustee Phillips. Second, trustee Luebanos, thank you. Any discussion? Let's move to voting. Trustee Bridges. And the motion passes unanimously. N, discussion and action to approve purchase of reading intervention and acceleration program. Do I have a motion? Moved by trustee Dorr. I'll take the second. Any discussion? Trustee Bridges.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, please.
I'm going to ask our educational services, our leading and learning staff to talk about Lexia, please, if you could come to the presentation area. Trustee Bridges, do you have any questions that we can address?
Well, as I've kind of discussed this in the past, this was in reference to Amplify, that with many of the students in my area that for whatever reason they're not connecting to it, and then they're not moving the needle. And I think I've been told that for those, because the rigor is so high with Amplify, that they kind of move them over for the tutoring piece, help me out, is used to the Lexi program. Is that correct?
Good evening, President Jackson, board members, Dr. Ramsey. My name is Tamika Brown, Associate Superintendent over Network 4. And Trustee Bridges, to answer your question, Lexia is one of the programs that we use to support students. It focuses on reading, it focuses on literacy, it focuses very specifically on phonics and phonemic awareness. And there are targeted groups of students that we will be using this program for in order to intervene and provide supports in order to move the trajectory, move the needle on student outcomes in literacy specifically.
Would this be used for like pullouts or more for for before and after school? Is that how you guys would be targeting them?
So we are actually in the process, in all transparency, we're in the process of looking at all of the services that we will provide to all of our students and determining a best fit. We know that these programs work. We also know that they will move the needle, but we also have to ensure that they're used with fidelity. We have to make sure that the right students have access to the programs, and the individuals, the adults that are supporting the students that are using these programs have the right training to use the programs well. And so we're in the process of making those decisions, but we know that Lexia works for increasing literacy for our students.
And Lexia is focused on, isn't it? Is it third on up, or help me?
Well, the program actually will serve all the way through secondary, but it's primarily used in elementary schools.
Okay, thank you.
But the content will actually support through middle school, but it's primarily used in an elementary setting to really fill in gaps for students that have phonemic awareness issues, or they struggle with fluency or comprehension. Lexia is primarily used to support students who have those gaps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, let's move to voting. Just for the record, that was moved by Trustee Dorr and seconded by myself. And the motion passes unanimously. O, discussion and action to approve purchase of web-based online curriculum program for retrieval, recovery, acceleration, and special programs for middle schools and high schools. Do I have a motion? Trustee Phillips. Do I have a second? Trustee Dar. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. P, discussion and action to approve purchase of property, boiler, and machinery, terrorism, including active shooter, flood, cybercrime, fleet, general liability, and UIL insurance with girls' football policy. Approve set-aside reserves to pay deductibles. Do I have a motion? Trustee Martinez, second. Trustee Ryan. Any discussion? Trustee Lynch?
I just have a question, just to clarify, the premiums going forward this year versus last year.
Our CFO is coming up
Okay.
to present.
Good evening. Carmen Arrieta Candelaria, CFO, and with me is Alex Schropp, our Executive Director of Risk Management, and Brian Schneider with Higginbotham, who is our broker. And so last year we had about, from last year to this is about $2 million, right, Alex?
Yeah, on the property.
But overall?
Property overall was 1.7.
You want to put it on your microphone, Brian? Press it. Press the button.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, property premium overall increased $1,729,206.
Can I ask you to speak to that a little bit?
Sure, yeah, and I think my colleague last time had kind of given some context to the overall insurance market. So overall, there's been historic claims, not only, I mean, the districts has sustained some certainly, but just across the board from property insurance across the board has suffered significant impact. So insurance carriers all traditionally buy insurance, so the reinsurance costs, the insurance that they're buying has gone up significantly. So we've seen it not only for the public sector, but across the board. As homeowners, you probably have experienced that as well. So what we're finding in the marketplace overall, the capacity, meaning the insurance carriers out there, that's been reduced significantly, and the number of insurance carriers willing to take on risk, specifically in the public sector, has decreased substantially as well. So the cost then for them from paying out claims, material, labor, et cetera, has gone up substantially. And then just from the overall capacity of number of carriers that are available, that has also reduced. So you'd find insurance carriers on the property front that aren't willing to take on public sector or just higher concentration of property insurance in various places. So that's just made it for all school districts across the board just a lot more difficult to be able to place the coverage, and in addition, a lot more expensive as well. Originally, when we had set out, it was early in the renewal process, so just a best guess of a worst-case scenario of 50% was established, just not knowing who all, in terms of insurance carriers, would come to the table in order to fill out all of the capacity that was needed. Since that time, it was significantly reduced, and with that increase, that equates to about a 31% increase over last year. And kind of speaking to a little bit of the claims history, the last 3 years, there was approximately, let's see here, $6 million in claims that the district had sustained, with $1.4 million that's estimated that has not been paid out that could potentially. So that equates to a loss ratio of 46% of actual sustained dollars that were paid out. And then if that additional 1.4 was paid out, that would equate to about a 57% payout from claims versus premium.
And I would also add that at the May 22nd board meeting, we discussed this in executive session about the risks and the associated and the potential increase in the claims. We had an extensive conversation. I'm happy to share that presentation with you, Trustee Lynch. We were prepared. We did incorporate into the budget. We were able to accommodate it within the budget that we had increased. And it was one of the items that we were looking at and trying to manage by changing increasing the deductible, managing the risk. But it's like Mr. Snyder just indicated, we started talking about it back in March, I think, when we first started looking at the renewal and trying to take some preventive measures in order to be able to reduce not only the risk, but also the cost to the district. We continue to monitor it. We continue to work with Higginbotham to try to minimize that risk, but it is what the insurance market is handing us to us at this time.
No, and I appreciate all the comment, very helpful context, so thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all. Any other questions? Just as a reminder, this was moved by Trustee Martinez and seconded by Trustee Ryan. Let's move to voting, please. And the motion passes unanimously. Q, discussion and action to approve purchase for classroom furniture for the pre-kindergarten classrooms for the 2023-2024 school year. Do I have a motion? Moved by Trustee Dar, second. Trustee Phillips. Any discussion? please move to voting.
I have a question.
Yes, trustee Dar?
I recognize the need that many of our pre-K classrooms need new furniture. Several of them they have needed significant facelifts for quite a while. Yet we also have some buildings that are relatively new. If a school chooses to opt out of the new furniture, do they have the autonomy to do so? And I'm really not exactly sure who I'm talking to right here.
To Deputy Superintendent Molinar.
Okay, sorry. I just kept kind of looking around.
Trustee Dar, thank you. So actually, we do have a campus currently. Overton Park is our newest elementary campus. They have asked to opt out and keep their current furniture. And then Rolling Hills, we've already purchased their new pre-K and K furniture that already aligns with the replacement. If there's other campuses that would like to speak to us about that, of course, we will go in and do an inventory. We just want to make sure we have not done a refresh on pre-K, K furniture in multiple years. And also, of course, our little ones they're exploratory and they like to, work on their motor skills. So we want to make sure they have the best furniture and materials in front of them.
Well, I want parents to walk into the room and say, this is a place where I want my kids to learn.
Yes.
And so I appreciate the investment. I just want to make sure that we've got the buy-in from our staff.
Definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And let's move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. Moving to R, discussion and action to approve closeout contract with Bernay Poter, a joint venture job number 001-102, and authorize final payment in conjunction with 2017 capital improvement program. Do I have a motion? Trustee Martinez, do I have a second? Trustee Ryan, any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. S, discussion and action to approve contracted services for occupational, physical, speech, and music therapy related services for students with special needs. Do I have a motion? Trustee Ryan, second. Trustee Dar. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. T, discussion and action to approve contract renewals for Fort Worth After School for provision of full service providers for the 2023-2024 school year. Do I have a motion? Moved by Trustee Phillips, second by Trustee Dar. Any discussion? Let's move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. U, discussion and action to approve contract renewal for contracted student support services, case management, and wraparound services for the 2023-2024 school year. Do I have a motion? Trustee Phillips and Trustee Martinez with the second. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Trustee Dar?
Thank you, President Jackson. We hear a lot about wraparound services. Can I just get some more specifics? I feel like that's something that not just I, but many of the people watching this meeting might want to know more about. What exactly are wraparound services?
Good afternoon, Board. President Jackson, Dr. Ramsey. This is a common service that you'll find that it's just not unique to Fort Worth ISD, but many districts where we're getting an increased number of referrals from not just administrators and teachers, but also from parents and students. And it's for requests for services that are outside of the realm of normal classroom teacher, but for professional services that have to do with mental health and well-being, physical health, sometimes just life resources and support. supports. These wraparound services support students with self-regulation, small group and sometimes large group socialization skills. It helps them with behavior management, and it also connects them with actual professional services, psychologists, social workers, mentors, and peer services. So we have 3 providers within the districts. Communities and schools, just to give you a little bit of their data, they serve about 80 kids on our campuses at 22 campuses. We have Girls Inc. that serves approximately 100 students at 4 of our campuses. And then we have MHMR that serves the majority of our campuses, 37 campuses, and they have a caseload of 30 students per social worker. This is one of the services that is funded by ESSER, and we are tracking to ensure that the services provide increased attendance, decrease discipline, and then improve academic outcomes for students. We know that if these items are impacting their own personal health and mental wealth and well-being, then it's going to be difficult for them to focus on academics. So it's very important that we provide these services, and we are tracking a return on investment with our ESSER funds. So we've been doing that for about 1.5 years now. So happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Are the, with some of these services, the psychological services, mental health services, behavioral services, are these all provided with parent permission?
The first thing before we address any student needs, we speak with parents and parents' consent. And I will tell you the majority of our referrals come from parents.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Motion was made by trustee Phillips, seconded by trustee Martinez. Any other discussion? If not, let's move to voting, please. And the motion passes unanimously. V, discussion and action to approve 2023-2024 budget for the Leadership Academy Network Texas Wesleyan University Management Team. Do I have a motion? Moved by trustee Rodriguez, seconded by trustee Phillips. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting. And the motion passes with 8 yeses and 1 abstain. Moving to W, discussion and action to approve authorization to enter into contracts for civil engineering services for traffic impact analysis and traffic management plans for the 2021 Capital Improvement Program. Do I have a motion? Trustee Phillips with motion, second trustee Dar. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. X, discussion and action to approve closeout contract with J.E. Dunn Phillips, May JV job number 005-212, and authorize final payment in conjunction with the 2017 Capital Improvement Program. Do I have a motion? Moved by trustee Ryan, seconded by trustee Rodriguez, by trustee Martinez. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, let's move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. And now we move to Y. Discussion and action for election of board education officers. At this time, I will turn this over to Dr. Ramsey, and she will oversee the process of board elections. Dr. Ryan? Oh, never mind. Your mic was on for a second.
This item is discussion and action for election of Board of Education officers. Do we have a motion for the slate? Dr. Ryan?
I'd like to move slate of officers for President, Dr. Camille Rodriguez, First Vice President, Ms. Ann Dar, Second Vice President, Ms. Roxanne Martinez, and for Secretary, Angel Luanos.
Do we have a second?
I'll take the second.
Okay, President Jackson. Is there any discussion on the item?
No.
No? Oh. Let's then please move to voting. And that passes unanimously. Congratulations to the slate of new officers.
This time I'll ask, are there any comments that anyone would like to make at the conclusion of the evening? Ms. Trustee Dar?
I've been quick with my finger this meeting, Toby, pushing that button. Thank you for putting some pictures up there. Congratulations to the video news production team of Bailey Boyce, Jalen Ferguson, Caleb Luttrell, and Boston Martinez for placing first in the nation. Let me repeat that. First in the nation. They competed in the Skills USA National Leadership and Skills Conference in Atlanta this past week. These students are a part of the Gold Seal Program of Choice in Broadcast Journalism Media Technology. Their advisor is, and I do not use this term loosely, the remarkable Darcy McCready. She is an amazing, amazing educator. This is the second national championship in video news production for Southwest High School, and it is the 7th time to place in the top 3 in the nation since 2011. The most recent bond election provided the resources to enable these students to be so successful. That was a 2017 bond. So thank you voters for your support in helping to make this happen for students. And I would be remiss if I didn't also thank the CTE, the Career and Technology Education Department, and also Mr. John Engel, the principal, who is perpetually supportive of this group of students and all the students at Southwest High School. So let me repeat, national champions, and that's awesome. So congratulations, students.
Trustee Dr. Rodriguez.
Yes, I just wanted to let everybody know how dedicated this board is. Today is Trustee Roxanne Martinez's birthday, and she's celebrating with her second family. So happy birthday.
Thank you. Can't think of any other place I'd rather be, right? I would like to congratulate the Daggett Montessori Band for being chosen to represent Fort Worth ISD at the upcoming State Honor Band Contest that will be held in San Antonio next month. So I want to give them a huge shout out and help us congratulate them and wish them luck as they showcase their talent. Thank you.
I want to thank this board. It's been an honor to serve as the president for 2 years. You all are unsurpassed, and we know I've been here a millisecond, and I'm really proud to have served with each of you. I look forward to the new officers. I look forward to the new highs this board reaches. I look forward to the team of 10 with Dr. Ramsey and many of the new employees and all of our supporters that we have, because in Fort Worth ISD, we have so many more supporters than detractors, and I want this board to remember that. And our charge has always been about kids, and it will continue to be. And I want to thank each of you all again for what you do for our kids every day. I want to welcome you, Trustee Lynch. I promise it's going to be fun, and it probably won't ever be your birthday on a Tuesday night. And on that, we're adjourned at 9:21. Dr. Ramsey, anything?